They say some buildings are born bad. The one on Helmswood Lane never had a chance. It was put up quick on land that had been swamp and cemetery, then used as an infirmary during a fever outbreak, then as a ward for psychiatric patients when the fever broke but the nightmares didn't. By the time the city condemned it, the walls were a patchwork of plaster repairs and whispers. For years it sat empty. Neighborhood kids dared each other to peek through its broken windows. The braver ones claimed they saw lights inside or heard a soft humming. Adults shook their heads and said, "Stay out." That's where the fever folk stayed. That place had its fill of suffering. But when my friend Simon told me he had a key, curiosity outweighed caution. We were seniors, eager to show we weren't afraid of anything. It was a Friday night in November, cold, windy, a sliver of moon behind torn clouds. The key was old, ornate, heavy, as though it belonged in a storybook. "Found it in my dad's desk," Simon said, eyes gleaming. "He used to do property inspections for the city. He never locks his cabinet." We met at midnight. Simon brought a flashlight and my phone had a fresh charge. I told my mom I was at his house playing video games. The truth thudded in my chest as we stood under the overgrown awning. The door looked like dried mud. Simon's key slid in easily. The lock gave a sigh and clicked open. We coughed at the smell. It was old paper and mildew, but under that, the metallic tang of rust and something sour like old breath. Our lights threw pale discs into a cavernous lobby. Reception desks sat half-smashed, chairs knocked over. Graffiti covered the far wall in overlapping slogans and names. Someone had spray-painted "Help" in neon orange and added a smiley face. Each footstep echoed, then faded as though swallowed by fabric. "Creepy, huh?" Simon whispered. His voice was buoyant but strained. I nodded. "Let's find the ward," he said. We moved through corridors lined with cracked tile. Decay had peeled paint into ribbons that curled like old bark. We passed empty rooms, file cabinets overturned, wheelchairs tipped on their sides. The silence was thick, like cotton packing the air. When we spoke, the quiet absorbed our words. I found myself whispering by reflex. The stairs groaned under our weight as we ascended. On the second floor, the air felt colder. We followed a faded sign that said PTSD Ward, the letters barely legible through stains. Simon's flashlight flickered. He slapped it. "Fresh batteries?" I teased. He grunted. "They were. I swear." We paused in front of a door marked Quiet Room. It was heavy, metal, built to keep sound out, or in. A small glass pane allowed a glimpse inside. I raised my phone and peered through. The room beyond was dark. Simon tried the handle. It turned easily. The door swung inward with a gentle creak. Inside was a small square space with padded walls, a single chair bolted to the center, and oddly, an old-fashioned upright piano in the corner. "A piano?" I whispered. "In a psych ward?" Simon shrugged. He stepped inside. "Maybe music therapy?" I followed, shining my light on the keys. They were ivory, yellowed with age, some chipped. A thin layer of dust coated them, but fewer specks rested on the middle notes, as if those had been pressed more recently. The lid was up. The sheet music holder was bare. Simon ran his finger along a key. It made no sound. I frowned. "Broken?" He pressed another key. Silence. He pressed harder. Still nothing. "It's muted," he said, tapping a few more. The room was filled with the soft thuds of keys descending and rising, but no music. Something prickled on the back of my neck. "This is weird," I said. Simon grinned, reached into his backpack and pulled out a tuning fork. "Brought this in case we needed to test acoustics." He struck it against the chair. The fork vibrated. We held our breath. Nothing. The room ate the sound. The tuning fork should have made a pure, high pitch, but here, nothing escaped. "That's not right," Simon said, his voice hushed. "The quiet room lives up to its name." A cool draft brushed my ear. I whirled. The door had swung shut. Simon lunged and grabbed the handle. He pulled. It didn't budge. "Locked," I whispered. He twisted the knob harder. "I didn't hear it click," he said, his tone rising. He put his shoulder to it and shoved. The door shuddered but held fast. There was a soft click from behind us. We turned. The piano's lid had lowered on its own, settling gently over the keys. My flashlight dimmed. I shook it. It flickered, then steadied at a lower intensity. My phone's screen went black. I hit the power button. Nothing. "Stop messing around," Simon said, voice shaking. I looked at him. "I'm not." The room darkened as if someone slowly drew heavy curtains. The only light was from Simon's trembling flashlight, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and twist with intention. I felt pressure on my eardrums like ascending quickly in an airplane. My teeth vibrated faintly, as though a low bass note thrummed beneath hearing. Simon clutched his ears. "Do you feel that?" he said. His voice sounded thick, as though underwater. The piano lid rose slowly. It lifted to reveal the keys, which in the dim light looked like small, uneven teeth. Without being touched, the keys depressed and released in sequence. No sound. Then more keys, as if someone were playing a melody we could not hear. My heart hammered. "Is someone there?" I whispered. Simon grabbed my arm. "We need to get out. Now." He pounded on the door, screaming. His voice was muffled. My own panic rose, but my voice came out like a whisper. I pulled him back. "It's not working." "Think." He looked wild. He turned his head, eyes tracking something above us. The ceiling seemed to ripple. Faint luminescent shapes coalesced like chalk drawings on smoke. Faces. Dozens of faces, mouths open as if screaming, eyes hollow. Their outlines pulsed with the hidden rhythm. They hovered, then descended, enveloping us like fog. Cold seeped into my bones. My mind filled with words that were not mine. They tumbled in a chorus. He couldn't sleep. She couldn't breathe. He woke up screaming. She didn't wake at all. He saw a man at the foot of his bed. She saw her son in the hallway even though he'd been dead for years. The voices layered, overlapping until they were an unintelligible murmur. My head throbbed. Simon clutched his skull and sank to his knees, rocking. "Make it stop," he cried, but I could barely hear him. The piano keys slammed down all at once, and this time a sound emerged. Not a note, but a collective breath drawn through hundreds of throats. The faces above us inhaled as one, then exhaled, and we were no longer in the quiet room. We stood in a hospital corridor. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The paint was fresh. Nurses passed by, their shoes squeaking on the linoleum. We wore white gowns. Our hands were bound by soft restraints. Simon looked at me, eyes wide. "Where?" A nurse approached, clipboard in hand. She smiled kindly. "It's time for group therapy," she said, her voice soothing. "You've both made great progress." She gestured down the hall. We followed, helpless, as though our limbs were not entirely ours. In the therapy room, patients sat in a circle. Some stared vacantly, others rocked. The therapist at the front asked each person to share their nightmares. When it was my turn, my mouth opened of its own accord. I spoke words that felt familiar, but were not mine. "The man in the mirror won't leave. He smiles when I'm sad. He sang me a song last night, Simon's turn. He said, 'The piano plays on its own. The keys are teeth. It wants me to listen.' We attended therapy, ate bland food, slept on cots under flickering lights. Days blurred. We took pills that made us sluggish. We stared at ourselves in smeared mirrors. We heard faint music at night, just beyond hearing. Time lost meaning. One day, a fire alarm blared. The nurse shouted, "Stay calm! Follow me!" Smoke filled the hall. We choked. Fire licked the ceiling. The sprinkler system failed. People screamed. Orderlies pushed wheelchairs through the chaos. Simon grabbed my hand. "Run!" We sprinted down the hallway. Flames danced along the walls. A door marked "Quiet Room" stood ajar. Simon looked at me. "It's this way." We burst inside. The room was unchanged. Padded walls, chair, piano. We slammed the door shut, panting. The roar of flames dimmed. The air cooled. The piano was still. We stood there, breathing hard. "This doesn't make sense," I said, my voice trembling. "It's like the worst possible memory stitched together." Simon shook his head. "Or, this is the memory. Maybe we never left." As if in response, the walls shuddered. A deep vibration coursed through the room. The padded walls rippled like fabric, and dark spots bloomed, spreading into patterns that resembled ink stains. The patterns resolved into letters, words, names. Each name glowed faintly. There were hundreds. I reached out and touched one. It read, Jonathan E., 1967. It was warm. Another, Patrice L., 1973. Simon touched one that said, Simon M., 1998. He jerked his hand back. "That's my name," he whispered. "That's my year of birth." My gaze scanned. My name was there too. Ryan K., 1998. My heart constricted. "What is this?" I whispered. Simon looked around, panicked. "All these names, these are the people who were here. They died here." His voice cracked. "Are we dead?" The piano keys lifted slowly, like fingers stretching. They pressed down in a new pattern. This time, a faint melody emerged. It was haunting, minor, like a lullaby warped by time. As the melody played, the walls around us faded, showing glimpses of different rooms, different times. We saw a woman in a dated nurse uniform singing softly to a soldier who stared blankly. We saw a man strapped to a bed, eyes wide, whispering to someone unseen. We saw a group around a radio, heads bent, listening as a news anchor announced the end of a war. We saw a child drawing on the floor, humming, while shadows danced behind her. The scenes flickered, layered over each other. We stood in the center of a collage of suffering. The piano music grew louder, and with it came a voice, singular, clear, close to my ear. "This is where we keep the noise." "Who are you?" I whispered. The voice did not belong to Simon or me. It was genderless, ageless, patient. It said, "The others didn't listen. They screamed and screamed. We made a room so they could be quiet. But the room filled up. It overflowed. Now we take turns." "Take turns with what?" I asked, my teeth chattering though I wasn't cold. The voice hummed a note. The room vibrated in response. "With sound," it said. "With stories. With memories. With guilt. You came in with your own, but you also came in with a key that belongs to someone else. You opened the door from the outside, so now you have to hold it closed from the inside until the next key turns." "No!" Simon shouted, his voice suddenly loud in my ears. He lunged for the door. The knob turned easily. It opened. Beyond was the corridor as we first saw it, dark, decayed, graffiti covered. He pulled me. "Come on," the voice chuckled softly. "Go then. See what you let out." We ran down the corridor, gasping. The air smelled cleaner, fresher. Moonlight shone through broken windows. It was as if we had never descended into the therapy nightmare. We didn't slow down until we burst out the front door into the cold night. The wind stung our faces. I dropped to my knees on the cracked sidewalk, gulping the crisp air. Simon bent over, hands on his knees, laughing and crying simultaneously. "We made it," he breathed. His flashlight lay forgotten inside. My phone buzzed. It had power again. I looked at the screen. It was 12:03 a.m. Only a few minutes had passed since we entered. "We should go," I said. "Now." Simon nodded. We hurried down the path, heartbeats loud in our ears. Behind us, the door to Helmswood Lane building swung slowly shut, though no wind moved it. There was a soft hum, like distant singing. We didn't talk as we walked home. Our streetlights looked softer, our houses less safe. I lay in bed, eyes open, listening for any sound. My mother opened my door at some point and peered in. "I didn't hear you come home," she whispered. I pretended to be asleep. In the morning, Simon texted, "Did last night happen?" I typed, "Yes." He replied, "My key is gone." Over the next week, my dreams were invaded. I stood in the quiet room. The piano waited. The chair faced the wall. Names slid like shadows across the padded surface. I woke with the taste of dust and iron in my mouth. Simon said he couldn't sleep. He heard whispering when he brushed his teeth. He saw reflections move out of sync when he passed mirrors. We decided to tell no one. One evening, as I walked home past the park, I heard music. At first I thought someone had left a Bluetooth speaker playing, but the melody was the one from the piano, faint and insistent. It came from the trees, from the swings, from the puddles. I froze. Across the street, a woman pushing a stroller paused, brow furrowed. She tilted her head. She could hear it too. The days grew colder. People in town started whispering about hearing things. A woman at the grocery store said, "You know that old hospital? They say someone broke in last week." The clerk nodded. "I heard singing by the river last night. Beautiful but sad. My dog wouldn't go near." Simon showed up at my house, pale, eyes rimmed with red. "I think we let it out," he said. "The quiet, the noise, whatever it was." We opened the door. We went back to Helmswood Lane with new locks and boards, but the front door stood closed, chained, a city notice affixed. We peered through a crack. Inside was dark. The quiet room might still be there, but something inside was no longer contained. It had seeped out, threading itself through our town like a low frequency you only notice when everything else is silent. At night, when the wind dies, when the highway is quiet and the refrigerator stops humming, you can hear the piano if you listen. It plays no notes, only the soft press and release of keys. Sometimes there's a whisper, a sigh, a shared secret. The sound doesn't hurt. It almost comforts. That's how it starts. I moved away for college. The music followed in my dreams. The first time my roommate said, "Do you hear that?" I knew it had found me. Simon texted me 3 months later. "It's in my dad's house now. He hears Mom singing in the kitchen. She's been dead 10 years. I typed back, "Maybe if we..." I didn't finish. There was nothing to do. Now, whenever I visit home, I walk past Helmswood Lane. The building is gone, bulldozed. A new development is planned. People say it'll be a shopping center. Workers have poured concrete foundations. They bring radios, but the music gets drowned out by a deeper silence. If you ever find an old key with ornate metalwork, don't use it. If you see an upright piano in a place where it shouldn't be, keep walking. If your reflection lingers longer than you do, look away. And when you hear a room full of nothing, remember, some sounds don't need ears. They just need permission. That's why they built the quiet room. They thought they could stuff all the noise and nightmares in there, hold them in place. But every lock has two sides. Every key fits more than one door. And sometimes, when curiosity outweighs caution, you become the hinge on which a silence turns.